seems like the way to live. Who said I should be a big shot? Who said I should take it TikTok? I gotta rest, I'm feeling so good. In me, I know it, but I'm misunderstood.
Let's start with you, SA2. Again, just as a way of introduction, please do tell me who you are and where you come from and how you got to be in the maritime sector to begin with.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity. As we've highlighted, my name is S.A.2 Hlokoza, and I'm from the Eastern Cape in a small town called Limbode. I grew up that side and I did my studies from primary to high school that side. And I came to Cape Town to do maritime studies at CPUT, of which I completed successfully. And I went to do my C-time, which is cadetship for training. And then until I got my qualification, which is OOW. So I got exposure into this industry, like through research and also through engagement with other parties that were involved in the maritime sector. And I currently hold like an officer of the watch certificate, of which I will be going for my chief mate's exams soon. As soon as possible, because that's one of the major requirements. And also, I came to know about this marine officer position through also research itself through the SAMSA website, as I always usually go through the site to understand and get in-depth information as to what's going on within the industry. That's when I got to see the position and then I applied for it. And luckily, I was considered as one of the recipients or considered for the interviews, of which I did the interviews, and I was one of the successful guys to be enrolled into this marine officer program. So this program for myself personally, I've had experience working out at sea on ships, and now I'm also gaining like an in-depth experience of what's going on in the like office industry or in the SAMSA maritime sector, whereby they are responsible for inspections and certification of ships, also ensuring that we are compliant with the international regulations in terms of aligning our training with the IMO resolutions and ensuring that the country as a whole remains on the white list. So for me, it's a great eye opener because I'm sort of like gaining like an in-depth information as to what happens in the office or in the shore industry as compared to what happens out at sea, and how that all ties up. So I think for me, that's just the great opportunity to be exposed both out at sea and also in this office environment. I think that's it
Wonderful.
for us.
Wonderful, wonderful, SO2. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate that. Taro, take us through where you come from and how you got attracted to the maritime sector to begin with and why it matters.
Okay. So my name is Taro Lombard. I am a Cape Townian. So I've always been interested in studying engineering. And then I remember back in matric, I went to a CPT open day, and then I saw the marine engineering section there. And I think it was a great way to be exposed to something that's different to mechanical, and that's also has a lot of exposure in like a global sector, where I felt mechanical engineering was very limited to South Africa specifically. So that's why I decided to enroll in the S1, S2 engineering program at CPUT. So yeah, after that, I got a cadetship with a container company, of which I completed my cadetship. And then I successfully passed my engineering officer of the watch oral examinations. And then I decided to actually complete my CPT studies rather than going back to sea. And then how I got exposure to marine surveying specifically is I got invited by one of the SAMSA surveyors to job shadow with him on the surveys that he went out to do. And then I saw, like, I really started becoming interested in the surveying aspect specifically, and I just felt that this is something that I would be really good at doing. So I went a bit further and I applied for the Lloyd's Maritime Academy Marine Surveying Diploma Program that I completed part-time with my studies last year at CBT, and then I'm actually still doing that now. I will be finishing that at the end of this year. So that's how I got exposure to both marine engineering and the marine surveying side. And I must say, as an engineer, I do see the benefits in becoming a surveyor, having that engineering background. And yeah, so that's basically how I got exposure there.
Wonderful. Thank you, Taro. I truly appreciate that. It's quite interesting, actually, what you guys go through. Some of the things you mentioned to me, I have no idea what you're talking about, but that helps because now I'm going to learn. There you are, Kanyisilen. Please tell us about yourself.
Okay, I am Kanyisilen Tetwa, originally from Duba, but do have a family based in Durban. So in my high school years, I did my high school in Durban. And when we're doing grade 10, we're actually the first group that had the introduction. So that's when the maritime studies were introduced to our school. And that's how I actually knew about the maritime industry. And then upon completion, I then enrolled at DUT to do my diploma in maritime studies. And from there, then I started my cadetship in the offshore industry. And I completed my cadetship in 2014. And at the same year, then I got my Officer of the Watch license. I then went back to sea. I sold as a third mate and got promoted to second mate. And then I went for my class 2 license, which is a chief mate's license, which is more on a management level. And I sold as a second mate. And also from time to time, I'll do some deliveries and sailing there as a chief mate because of the size of the vessel. It was smaller. And it was last year when I actually saw the post on the SAMSA website. And at that time, I was just teaching at CPUT. So I applied because I've always wanted to work for SAMSA, really. So when that opportunity came, I applied, and I was lucky enough to be accepted into the program. And
Yes.
okay, and just in terms of the program, I must say it was a good choice to actually make because looking at what we're doing, we actually get to learn more about the industry because I personally have only been exposed more to the offshore industry, but there are just so many different sectors within our industry, and it's a great learning experience.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kanyisile. There is one question that I always ask, and this is based on a general perception. We get a sense that in South Africa, the country is a maritime country. The country is a maritime country surrounded by 3 oceans. Not just seas, but oceans, the Indian to the west, the Southern Ocean to the south, and the Indian Ocean to the east. Yet, a majority of people, but particularly Black South Africans, do not seem to know anything about the maritime sector. Now, Carol, this will exclude you because I think you've been watching too many yachts and everything. You would know about this. For the two of you guys, what attracted you to the maritime? What was it that sparked your interest? How did you get Any one of you can take the question.
Okay, like I said, for me, the maritime industry or the maritime studies were introduced while I was still doing grade 10. And to me, it was something new, it was something unique, and it's something that I wanted to be part of. That's how my interest came about.
Did you know anything about the South African Maritime Safety Authority at the time, or have you had any news at all other than just picking it up at school?
No, before then I had no information about it.
And for you, too, I mean, coming from the Transkei, I mean, hello, you're closer to the Wild Coast, so you would have picked up a few wrecks. But other than that, what was it about the maritime sector? What was it about seafaring that attracted you?
Okay, if I can start by saying, for me, as growing up, I loved going out to sea, even just going for a swim, like out to sea, because we used to go to Port St. John's because that's closer to my home. But like I loved swimming and all that, and I would spend a lot of time in the water. And now and then, there were times I would see ships like passing by, and then I would go stand. There were actually rocks that are around the beach where I would stand, and then just to see the ships. And for me, it was fascinating because that was the interest that developed as to like how do those things have wheels? How do they float? How, like, because they're so huge. But to actually think, because for us, I think the mentality was like, if you can't put a metal into the water, immediately the metal will sink, because we grew up in disadvantaged schools. So now that's when I got to university, like at Walter Sisulu, I ended up doing like more research now about this industry, and I found, okay, there's like, it's actually called like maritime studies when you actually want to work on ships. And then I did more in-depth research, and then I ended up finding out, okay, there's actually two schools that we could do it then. It was DUT as well as Cape Town. And then I applied to Cape Town. And then luckily I got into the program. But also when I got also into the program in Cape Town, they obviously they will ask you academic records from the previous institution. They wanted to force me to do the marine engineering side. But for me, I knew exactly where I wanted to be and which division or department I wanted to be involved in. And I think for me, I would say it was just out of pure interest and out of thorough research to actually understand what this industry entails. And also now to like to go to your other question about SAMSA, I did all the requirements, did like meet all the requirements in terms of the applications, and then I sent in my application. And now we're told, okay, in order for you to come work, like resume your studies for the first year, we're told to go to SAMSA. I was like, what the heck now? What is SAMSA? Like, where are we gonna go with this? Because we're told we have to go do eyesight, especially for the deck guys. And then I came here. That was the first time I saw the building. Okay, this is SAMSA. This is South African Maritime Safety Authority. And then that's where now at school we started to learn about the responsibilities and it's basically the rights and the responsibilities, and also the designation of SAMSA to Department of Transport and all that, and how it all correlates. So that's how, for me, it went about.
And now that you are marine officers, I think it's called a marine officers training program at SAMSA. That's what it's called, right?
Yes.
Okay. I know that two of you have already covered some ground over the last month of September. It would be you, Taro, as well as you, Kanyesile, right?
Yes.
Wonderful. If you don't mind, just very briefly, if you could just take us through what you have done so far and how you have found it. Taro, maybe you could start.
I think for the both of us, it's been quite the same. So in terms of our training, everything we do it together. Even though I'm engineering and both of them are navigation side, in terms of training for this marine officer program, it is set out to be the same. So, I mean, we've been exposed to many different things in such a short while already. Like hearing from their backgrounds, we all come from much bigger and larger vessels. So, you know, we're starting small with this training program, being exposed to smaller vessels, such as small fishing vessels, the larger fishing vessels, and, you know, passenger vessels, which is touching a lot on the safety aspect again. And then, so basically for the past month, we've been doing short courses. So courses specifically focused on small vessels, on these terms might sound alien to you, but buoyancy, wooden vessels, and passenger vessels, like I mentioned as well. So it's been very interesting. I think Kanisile would also agree. There's like coming from these big ships, you think you know everything that there is to know about ships, but it's a complete different ball game. Just because the ship is smaller doesn't mean it's inferior. You know, it's really different. From my perspective as an engineer, I can really say there's different aspects to look at it. Yeah, so I mean, it's been a good start, and I think the rest of this year is going to be very interesting as well.
Yeah, I saw a report actually, which we'll chat about offline. But there's a report that you guys have compiled with some pictures and all that. I mean, pontoons, pontoon vessels. I have no idea what that looks like. Wood is that a wooden vessel?
So yeah, we're working.
Yeah.
So Cape Town Cape Town and Saldanha Bay, we deal with a lot of wooden fishing vessels. So those are very old and delicate, I want to say, fishing vessels that still work with old wooden designs. So it's very interesting to go survey these ships because, I mean, most of them are, I mean, there's one that I've dealt with that's from 1940. There's one from 1960. So, you know, it's a whole different ballgame with how to deal with this specific ship. So that's why it's necessary to be doing a course that is specifically focused on those vessels. Because there you get to deal with things that you won't ever get to deal with. From my side as an engineer, like I would never have gotten exposure to that if it was not for this. And then you mentioned the pontoon vessel. So that's again a specific design of a boat. So if I can show it, a boat usually looks like this, and then a pontoon has two floating sides. So passenger vessels, they like to use those designs because it's very stable.
That's right.
Now, that's why we're also doing a specific training course on the design of the pontoon and stability, because that, like I mentioned, is touching on safety. And that's all, well, mostly what SAMSA is about, the South African Maritime Safety Authority. So we need to know how to do these things to improve on the safety statistics, basically. Yeah.
Can you see it? Thank you, Taro. Can you see it? Speaking of wooden vessels, I think I've seen quite a lot of those also in Fishhook, because the Western Cape, it so happens to be, I think the ground upon which most fishing people are. I know the Eastern Cape, there's a bit of fishing, especially in the Beatty region. I wanted to ask you, Tanyisiwa, the wooden technology that these fisheries or fishermen use, is it able to accommodate modern technology that is required for them to be seen at sea, to communicate at sea, and all those kind of things? How different is it really?
Well, the thing is, nowadays, the use of wood has been eliminated, if I put it that way or has been reduced due to the fact that it takes a lot of maintenance, and again the skill is not there as it used to be with the modern constructions coming into play. So they are slowly dissolving, if I may put it that way. And like I said, it comes again when looking at the safe aspects. It comes with much more issues when it comes to it being watertight and all that. So you need to properly maintain it, and if already you do not have the right ship rights to actually maintain that vessel, then it becomes a little bit difficult.
Yeah, thank you for that. As I understand it, you will continue to be doing a lot of training. Am I correct in understanding that you will be moving around the country, that is on the coast? You will start in Cape Town. Will somebody talk to me about that? Cape Town, and then you will move elsewhere and that kind of thing? Could somebody just...
Yeah, so I think like from SAMSA side, they would like us to be exposed to not only one port. I mean, we've been given the structure to go through all these training programs and short courses. So it only seems right to actually also then be exposed to the whole of SAMSA. So that's why I'm being exposed to Cape Town. Shortly, we'll be doing a trip to Pretoria. We'll be doing a trip to Durban. We've been, Okanisile and I, we've been exposed to the ports of Mossel Bay. So I think, yeah, we're definitely looking at traveling to all the different ports. We'll be spending some time in different ports, few weeks to a few months, and it's just to get a general idea of how each port differs from the next. Because I mean, the port of Cape Town is different to the port of Durban or to the port of Mossel Bay. So, and each port has their own little thing that they deal with that's unique to the other ports.
Okay. Now that makes perfect sense, because I would imagine that to be the case. In my few travels that I mentioned earlier around the South African coastline, especially the ports, Saldanha, Cape Town, Mossel Bay, Ngqura, PE, well, they call it Gqeberha now. I have no idea why. East London and that kind of, you can, even a layman like me, you can sense that there is a slight difference in the ports, and even the vessels that they all handle are slightly different. It is my understanding that part of the training will include something called IMS ICS 100 and 200. You will also be spending some time at the MRCC doing a search and rescue course. You want to talk to me about that, SA2? What is an IMS ICS course to start with?
Okay, actually, those two courses, the ICS or IMS 100, we still have to do probably after this meeting. So I can't dwell in depth with those two.
Okay.
But in terms of the MRCC, yes, we will be spending some time in Batekloof, basically. Also, what MRCC is for, like, it's a Maritime Rescue Coordination Center. So it's more like a 911 of the sea. So whatever or whenever there's an emergency out at sea, all the calls go out to MRCC, and they are the ones that are responsible for sourcing out all the resources, because they will receive the information or the distress, and they will actually decide what the resources and what dangers also are involved with the whole operations. Just also putting into perspective, like the incident that you also showed us on the blog. If you may have that kind of incident happening out at sea, and there's like a tanker ship that's nearby, and it's the only ship that can render assistance, but that ship cannot render assistance to yourself, because they will also be putting themselves in danger. So at MRCC, you also have like, I would presume, like a safety net, because we used to have that at sea. like a safety net system whereby if there's an emergency of a particular ship in that particular position, you can check what vessels are in the vicinity of the ship, and then also if they can be able to render assistance. So that will be the course that we will be busy doing this week, also from Wednesday until Friday. So yeah.
That's wonderful. No, that's wonderful, guys. I think we are going to continue having this chat momentarily. Taro, I see that you would like to add something.
So just to add to what Aseti said about the MRCC course, you also mentioned the ICS course that we're still to do. That is actually the incident command system. That's what ICS stands for. So there's different levels to that, 100, 200, and 300. And that deals with, that course is focused on the actual system that is being used nationwide to, how can I say, manage the incidents regardless of the size of the vessel, if it's a container ship or a small little fishing vessel.
Thank you again. I think we have covered some ground for now. This is the beginning of our own engagement. We are going to continuously do these sessions individually or as groups as we go forward, reflecting on your experience and based on your write-ups, which we will work on and share with the public using our online platforms. We've got the blog, we've got the website, and we've got social media platforms as well, in terms of, for example, Facebook, LinkedIn, and that kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to working with you. So for now, the recorded session comes to an end.